We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Taste with you well. If you've gone sour, you want the world plus everything, but it won't work an hour. And now your questions of guilt creeping and you're going buying flowers. You throw away the dreams we had, boy. I won't allow it. I said we're gonna fall out. Let's see you get out. I think we're gonna fall out. Just shut your mouth.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters, the professionals, this fine Sunday evening. Good evening to Stu, good evening to Mitch. You all right, lads?
Good.
Good stuff. We will be on till 7 tonight, as I put in the chat, and we will be on Fan Sport tomorrow, 6 o'clock. So business as usual for NUFC Matters throughout the summer months, so stay tuned. A lot of questions about transfers. We'll leave that to Ben Jacobs. The lads really, and me, don't have the ins and outs with regards to transfers. Unless it's something that we hear, which we can more or less put nailed on, I think we leave the speculation to other channels. So if you've come here for speculation on transfers, you're at the wrong place. But we can't talk about a transfer that looks like it's probably not going to happen, and that's Tosin, who looks like he's going to Chelsea. Stu, Mitch was speaking about this the other night, to be honest, and I think the phrases that Mitch kind of more or less been prophetic, because ultimately this guy looks as if he's gone for the money, or maybe his agent's gone for the money, shall we say. It's you know, a transfer isn't as cut and dry as it used to be in the 70s and 80s. There's a lot of people have a lot of interest in whether a player goes to a particular club, and you know, the bottom line is if we missed out on him, then we move on.
Well, yeah, you and Mitch spoke about it on Friday. Me and Mitch slurred about it last night. But I take a different standpoint. It's easy to criticise the player because he hasn't chose us, and we'll have to sometimes accept where we are in the pecking order, and we're not where we as fans want to be. Every fan of each club wants to be at the top of the tree, and we're not. So we're not the attractive or the attraction that to someone who's played all his career down south that we would like us to be. However, as I understand it, and as Mitch, I'm sure I think I remember him saying who he got his information from, but I wouldn't, just in case he hasn't. The player himself was very keen to come to Newcastle, and he was on $100,000 a week. But Chelsea would come in and they're capable of offering him more money, and whether we like it or not, £60,000 extra a week is not to be sniffed at. That's £3 million a year into his bank. Well, the tax is probably $1.5 million a year, but you know, you get what I'm coming from. He's been offered a lot more money, and the football career is short. So I can see why he's done it. I'm not saying I agree with it, because we wanted to come to Newcastle, but someone who's played in the leaky or creaky Fulham defence for the last few years is not going to make or break our summer. And that's not sour grapes. That's just the fact. The reason that I think we were invested in him was because it was a free, which allowed a more of the supposed budget to be targeted elsewhere. You know, where we could have went bigger than what we might have tried initially. But Tosin is a decent player. Don't get us wrong, and he would have been an upgrade on the bottom end of our squad, and that's what we've been prophesizing for a long time on this channel. that we need to start improving the bottom of the squad. But he was not going to be the star signing. It's not like when we signed Jeff Hendrick and there was like 4-page pull-out in the Chronicle. You know, this would have just been an extra addition to the squad, and ultimately he would have been a squad player. He's now going to be one of 8 centre-backs at Chelsea. So, yeah, you can question his footballing, and I know he was wanting to come to Newcastle for the footballing reasons because he believed Eddie Howe could improve him. But he doesn't have to move house. He's got, and I don't think when people say European football, I don't think the attraction of Conference League's was a deal breaker in this situation. I think the £60,000 extra a week was. Now, if we were to match that, that would make him our joint highest earner, and he's not good enough for that. And then it's what happens after that. It causes a bit of unrest. How come he's getting that? So then there'll be a queue of people asking for parity at least. And then if you've got 5 people wanting an extra 60 grand, I'm trying to do the maths as I'm speaking now, there's another 300 grand a week, which is 15 million a year. And we're not in a position where we can just start dishing it out like that. So, yeah, it looks like it's one we've lost. It's one that we would have wanted. And like most transfers in Newcastle, once it gets in the public domain, then it starts becoming dicey because other teams start getting involved. But Chelsea seem to be doing this year what they did last summer, and anyone that Arsenal were interested in, that's a good idea, we'll buy them. So it seems to be our turn now. So let Chelsea crack on with what we're doing, and I'm sure we've got plan B, C, D and E to improve our squad. It's going to be a long summer, isn't it, with all these links and everything else.
The bloody transfer window is not even open yet. Obviously, for free transfers, of course, people out of contract, people can do the business. But yeah, Mitch, I mean, we did speak about this quite a lot on Friday, and I wouldn't say we dampened people's thoughts on it. We gave as much as we could give, I guess, via yourself. But I mean, look, at the end of the day, I think people have made the point. Paul Charlton in the chat, good evening, Paul. He said 60k a week extra, and Mitch, Stu's just done the maths, 3 million a year. Who's going to turn that down? And he doesn't have to move out.
Yeah, and I think the guy I was speaking to pretty much told us what was going to happen without telling us what was going to happen, really. Which you always get this feeling when you're speaking with some individuals. They're speaking in riddles, or there's something they're just not quite telling you. But I think what he's also said to us is what the big attraction for many players will be. I just can't work out how Chelsea can behave in the way they are when there's so many question marks over. Are they that confident that they're going to be allowed to go through with the hotel sales and with the training ground sales to balance the books? Or they're that confident that, how are they going to make 8 centre-backs work going into next season? And who are they going to let go, and who are they going to sell, and what kind of book value are they going to lose on the players that they're selling? That can't be great for their FFP either. So it's again comes down to Todd Bowley and his magic game of smoke and mirrors. Or do they just not care? Are they arrogant enough to really not care? I cannot work it out. But equally, yeah, he doesn't need to leave West London. He's getting a significant pay rise. Everything can sort of, for him, go on as it normally is. And he picks up an extra 60 grand a week. It's nice money if you can get it, isn't it? But equally, I'll never criticise a player going for something like that, because his career could be ended tomorrow by a bad tackle. And so, of course, they're going to take the money that they can get if it's an easy, no-brainer of a deal.
Yeah, but Mitch, wasn't Thiago Silva on 400 grand a week or something like that?
Something ridiculous.
And his contract's finished, so let's say it was 400. I think it might even have been higher. But you take off the 160 for that, because he's a free transfer, at least £240,000 a week. Still surplus to the budget they already had. They could go and sign another 2 players and give them 120 grand a week. And they're still level to where they were, but they've got 3 new players in. So when people are saying, how can Chelsea afford to do it? They haven't changed anything. They're actually saving money by bringing him in and letting Silva go.
England playing tomorrow night. Anthony Gordon is going to miss the clash. He's still got an Achilles problem, but yeah, we saw the Lionesses play Stu Friday night at St James's Park. I've not bought tickets for any of these games. I'm only interested in seeing Newcastle United play at St James's Park or the odd gig. If there's a big concert there, I don't mind going as long as it's somebody I like. But yeah, I mean, what's your thoughts on these England games being played at St James's Park? Do you like to see them come to the ground? I know you're a Scotland fan, but are you a fan of international football coming to St James's Park? I'll widen it a little bit. Would you go to see Scotland there?
Yeah, of course I would. But it's good that England are able to get round the country from that way. I know that they're playing tomorrow because I read something that Trippier's going to be captain. But because I've been away for the weekend, I might have to do my ironing instead tomorrow night or something like that. I might be having my curlers in or something. So I'm not a fan of the friendlies. They become very monotonous and boring, and especially before a big tournament, no one's going to be busting the gut out of fear of injury. And that's normally when someone gets injured. But yeah, it is good whether it's at St James's, Anfield, Old Trafford, Villa Park. If they take it around the country, it gives more fans to watch, and because it's not as easy just nipping down to London as it is for the people who are living there, quite clearly. So it's not just people from Newcastle. There will be people from the northeast and some from the northwest will come up, but it's a sellout, so that shows there's a demand for it, and I hope it's a good game and a good atmosphere, and he's got a good result.
Mitch, are you pleased to see the England team getting a game at St James's? It's been a while.
It has been a while. There's always been a discussion about whether they should move smaller qualifying games and friendlies around the country. And when Wembley was being rebuilt, it was always well received. At the moment, there's a extra elephant sat in the room with regards Ratcliffe's talks about them wanting now Wembley of the North at Man United at the taxpayers' expense. They could turn around and say, look at the response we had here and look at the response we had there. It justifies why I want taxpayers' money to do this at Man United. But the only time I really got terribly excited about international football at St James's Park was Euro 96. That whole tournament, I think I went to every game at St James's during that tournament. And it was such a different footballing experience. But I struggle still to get excited for England. Yet, once the tournament kicks off, I'm quite sure I'll be wanting to work out where I am, what I'm doing when, and do I need to cancel a few patients at the end of the day to get away on time to see the kickoff.
Yeah, that's not one for me, to be perfectly honest. I'll watch the Euros. I'll watch England the Euros. But everyone who's going tomorrow night, I've seen Darren in the chat there, Mr. Negativity, as he likes to call himself. He's going to the match. I hope he enjoys it. A lot of people as well posting with the news that's just broken that Rob Burrow, the guy who is a legend in all different types of ways now, not only as a sportsman, but the way that he battled MND, motor neuron disease, of course, has passed away. And our thoughts, like everybody's, are with Rob's wife, Lindsay, his children, Macy, Maya, and Jackson. But he played number 7 for Leeds Rhinos, and he lived with that brutal disease in the public eye, Stu, and chose to announce his diagnosis. It was just before Christmas in 2019. And I think credit to the guy for using every opportunity to raise awareness of the disease. He spoke publicly about it. He undertook media interviews, no matter how difficult it became. And he opened up his life in 2 moving BBC documentaries. One which it had, I think most people in tears have watched it, My Year with MND, and of course the other one, which was Rob Burrow, Living with MND. But what a character, and what a legend, as I said, in more ways than one, Stu.
Yeah, I can only echo what you just said there, Steve. It's a horrible disease, and what he did, he brought it into the public domain because it's something that not many people know of unless it's someone is affected by it. But also the moving pictures of, was it Kevin Sinfield that was carrying him for one of the races?
Yeah.
He did a lot of charity work with him, and thankfully it got the media attention. And it's sad that it's such a healthy guy his life just got wasted like that. But in a way, of course, you don't want the guy to pass, but it's not wasted with the fact that so much money's been raised, as you said, through the awareness, and hopefully they can find something to, even if you can't get a cure, to help those who are suffering with it. So all we can say really at that stage is R.I.P. Rob Burrow, and God's strength to his family.
Yeah, Mitch. I mean, he managed to campaign as well. He got a 50 million government investment in targeted MND research. They did a big, a big collection for the Challenge Cup final. There was £70,000 raised in 2020 for the MND charity. And the plaudits came as well. His contribution to rugby, of course, was almost second to none as well. But the awareness of MND helped him to be recognised in the 2021 New Year's Honours list. He was made an MBE, and in the same year he accepted the role of patron of the MND Association. He was subsequently awarded a CBE in the 2024 New Year's Honours list. But I think we've said it all, haven't we, Mitch? He's going to be remembered for all the right reasons, Rob.
And using his personal tragic situation as a way to raise funding and awareness, because all of these degenerative neurological diseases, as well, made my dad know, my mum with Alzheimer's. There's a whole group of them that effectively take the person and take their active mind and lock it away in a box of some description, while the body and or the mind outside of that box fails slowly. It's a curse. They're terrible, terrible diseases, and ones that need awareness, ones that need funding for research, ones that often get forgotten about while people go and talk about more commonly discussed illnesses and ailments and diseases. And so for him to have done what he's done in his own personal situation, to drive the awareness, to drive funding, to get that disease on the lips of many people. And when you do it through sport, there's something about sport, particularly team sport and competitive sports like football, like rugby, in both codes, which then makes everybody come together, of all teams. And that's when sport can be such a power for good. And yes, he's had recognition in the forms of things like CBEs, etc., for what he's done. But I do hope, and I'm quite sure, Rugby League will make sure his name's never forgotten. And I think that's really super important.
Yeah, rest in peace, Rob Burrow. And Doddy Weir, of course, a lot of people mentioning he had it as well, another rugby legend in the Northeast. And there's a few people been through the same horrendous illness. Let's hope they can find a way of nullifying it and curing it in due course. Back to football then. Quite a few questions are starting to come in now. Let's talk about this though, while it's there. Stephen Nucken says, I watched the Champions League final. I was amazed at the security, where there were more flares on show than the mid-70s, and pitch invasion within minutes of kickoff. 5 pitch invasions, no less, Stephen. One which Craig Hope actually put out onto the onto his social media as he was covering the game at Wembley last night. But I mean, overall, as a spectacle, it wasn't the greatest of games. Dortmund seemed to set their stall out as they had all the way through the group stages and into the later stages. Very good defensively, nullifying teams, but didn't have a way of breaking down Real Madrid. And of course, Real Madrid, 15 Champions League wins now. Unbelievable record. That's almost double the amount of, I think it's AC Milan, who were in second place. I mean, you watched the game last night, Stu. What was your take on that? And it was, as you were, really, Real Madrid just proving they are the best team in Europe.
It just shows what a wonderful game football is, because the game I watched, now bearing in mind I was probably a bit more worse for wear than you were when I was watching the game, but my take of it was, I think if Dortmund had been 2-0 up at half time, not many people could have complained. It was a more offensive Dortmund. And when I say offensive, I doesn't mean they're being rude. It was their fans that were doing the pitch invasions. I mean, like, attacking. and they created a lot of good chances, and it was only bad finishing or bad fortune that kept the game 0-0 at half time. But there was an inevitability about Real Madrid going on to win it. It was like Dortmund had chances, they didn't take them, and it was, for me, it was only a matter of time before Real Madrid do what Real Madrid do and get the job done. And they did it. It's an amazing achievement. And again, something that me and Mitch discussed last night was when you looked at the great teams in the past, like the Liverpools that dominated in the 80s, the AC Milan at the turn of the 90s. This Real Madrid team have won more than all of them, like the Ajax team in the 70s and stuff like that. But they're not really a great team. It's not even the best Real Madrid team there's been in the last 10, 15 years. Yet they know how to get the job done. And that counts for a lot, because how many people have said they're not the best team in Europe? Man City are. But here we go again. They've won, is it 3 of the last 4 or something? So they know the way home, and they're going to get stronger next season if Mbappe signs as well. So they've set the stall out now to say, catch us if you can. And realistically, it's going to be a generation before anyone can get even close to them with the amount of good teams about. So credit where it's due. Some great stories both. I thought Dortmund, Hummel's last game, I thought he defended as we know he can be. He was imperious. He was tackling was on point and crucial. And I thought with a bit more conviction, or even a forward that knows how to find the back of the net, dare I say, if Isaac had been playing for Dortmund, I think they could have won it last night. But as I said, once the chance had gone, it was just a matter of time before Real Madrid punished them. But that's my take on it. I think you and maybe everyone else who watched it, apart from Mitch, because he agreed with us at the time, they might have been less full of alcohol and actually thought that Real Madrid thoroughly battered them. But that's not the way we've seen it.
No, I didn't think Real Madrid battered them. No, I don't think it was a very entertaining game, and I agree with you. I think Dortmund could have been 2 goals up. There's no doubt about it. But I mean, Jordi to my life says he felt that Dortmund were the better team. But you know, for me, I just think Madrid. It wasn't a great final. I didn't enjoy it, and I don't know. A lot of it. There's a lot made of the Champions League final. It just wasn't. Maybe I should have had 20 Jägermeisters like you guys. Mitch, what was your what was your take on the final?
Pretty much the same as what Stu said. I also find it amazing. Courtois had a really good game, and he's not even going to the Euros. You know, it's. I thought he was on hand at a couple of critical times for Real Madrid, like any top class keeper should be. I still find it amazing there was as many pitches there as managed to get through as there were. Did they not watch our game with Everton? What potentially could happen in a situation like that? It seems thoroughly embarrassing from a security point of view, but never mind. On the pitch, yeah, Stu and I were originally headed down to watch with the Dortmund lads. There was a group of the Dubai Mags watched with the Dubai Dortmund fans last night, but we got waylaid and distracted by another German drink at one point. It's never going to go down as a classic Champions League final. That's for sure. But as ever with many cup competitions, we beat what's put in front of you. And that's at the end of the day. I still watch that match with a bittersweet taste of just what could we have done had we gone through to the knockout stages like we should have. How far really would we have got? Because on that display last night, I saw nothing that would frighten us on our better days. Really. Is the line between success and failure that fine that it relies on a dodgy handball call in the dying minutes of a game in Paris? I find it quite amazing. But I can take away the sliding doors moment. It just is what it is. I think we're all really over that now. But last night was just a little bit of sweet memory about what possibly could have been.
Yeah, definitely the case of that. Got a couple of other questions coming in. Yeah, Joselu as well. Yeah, somebody put in about Joselu. For me, great to see him. Congratulations to him for getting a Champions League medal. He joins Thomason as well, doesn't he? Another player who left Newcastle after having a fairly poor time.
thing with Joselu for me always was, he went through a run when he was with us. He would get into the positions and then he couldn't put it away. And for me, that's the sign of, a striker still doing his job. He's getting the chances and he's getting into the positions. It's when they're not even getting into the right positions, that's when it's a real problem for me. And so he's managed to turn it around through one thing and one thing only, his own hard work, I guess.
Yeah. Got to see a pre-match. They spoke of us for a bit. They all spoke well of us and about the Champions League again. Yeah, they did. And Jose Mourinho spoke well of Newcastle as well, which was good. Sam says they'll probably find a way of blaming the Toon for the pitch invasion. I hope not. Alan says, lads, when we win it in 2 years' time, it'll be the best final ever. And Neil Calvert says, would you take any of the Dortmund players, lads? Hummels for a year, perhaps, Stu?
I think a lot of their players would fit our system as well, because they are energetic. They're well drilled. There doesn't seem to be any egos amongst them. They all seem to know the role and play the part. So I don't want to single one out and say, I think we should have him, because then that looks like we're identifying. I mean, the one standout that would know that's got Premier League experience would be Sancho, but he's not going to stay at Dortmund anyway. And not that we can't afford him. I don't think we'd pay anywhere near the salary that he's on. Let him go back to Man United and let him pay it. So Dortmund are excellent at what they do. You've got Roos, who's on his last, he's finished now, isn't he? He could get him on a free. Had we got into the Conference League or even the Europa League, something like him with his experience, Royce would have been a nice addition to the squad. But from there, I think we need to be looking at younger players who can take us forward, and they have them. There was a thing Pally Power said last night, wasn't it? It was on Twitter that Chelsea will be interested in the left back, and it's actually a Chelsea player. Yeah. So it's quite funny how because that just reminds us of Joe Kinnear when he was after Ferguson, wasn't it? He was at Birmingham, and he says, "Oh, well, I think we should go and sign him. He's our player on loan." But now, just to answer the question, there's many Dortmund players, but I look at the ones up front, no. The ones in midfield, no. And the ones in defence, if everyone's fit, I think we've got better. And it's strange, but they work extremely well as a unit. But individually, I think we've got better players than Dortmund. Anybody tickle your fancy there, Mitch, at in the Dortmund team?
That back line works well because of Mats Hummels' experience.
Yeah.
And Hummels has been there, got the T-shirt, and I think he makes the other lad at centre-back, Schlotterbeck, a much better player as well. The two full-backs are energetic and get up and down the wing. That would fit our system. The right-back, actually, Ryerson, would be one I wouldn't be unhappy to look at, depending on who goes out. And the lad, there's that I really like, was the Adeyemi, the lad on the left wing. He gave us bother in both the games, both the group games against them. He's energetic. He's got the work rate that would fit in our system quite nicely as well.
You say he's better than Gordon. That's the point I was making.
Yeah, that's true. But you kind of have it. But we've also got Barnes as well. That fills in well there. So again, how does it all add up?
But the other centre half was good as well. Is it Schlotterbeck?
Schlotterbeck.
Yeah,
but I think Hummels makes him a better player.
Yeah.
I'd be interested to see him without Hummels there on a regular basis. Is he really as good as we think, or is he being very well marshalled by an experienced centre-back partner?
Yeah, possibly.
Up to 104 players linked with Newcastle, and the transfer window isn't even open yet. So thanks, Barry. Keep going, mate. Keep going. We'll see whether we can beat last year's record. I wouldn't be surprised if we do. There was a question about Bruno. Where is it? Yeah, it was from Barry Hogan. It says, Stu, Mitch, now his release clause is active. Do you think anyone will go for Bruno? I'll be keeping my fingers crossed to the end of the month that no one does. I hope he stays with us. Do you think anybody will? Stu?
I just keep getting flashbacks when you're asking these questions, because that was something else we discussed last night. I'll probably just give Mitch a reminder as well. And I said, look, Kroos is leaving and Modric is on his last legs. that worries me regarding Bruno, because I think that's the only team I think he would be genuinely interested to say, look, if they've bid, I want to go and speak with him. I think that's the only team that could tempt him at this stage. But all the sounds I'm getting, all the sounds he's given, and all the sounds his father's definitely given is Bruno's going nowhere and he's staying at Newcastle. And you just have to take the face value. And I was looking at Barry's figures there. It'll probably it'll probably clear 200. And we said something similar last year for players linked. So if we sign 4 good players this summer out of 200, that's 2%. So 1 in 50 of the people we're linked with will actually sign. And that's why people shouldn't get invested with this player's coming or that player's definitely coming, or we know this player's because that journalist has said this. They're paid to get people to read their columns. And of course, they'll make it sound plausible. But realistically, 1 in 50 players that we're linked with, we will sign this summer. 1 in 50. That's the transfer window for you. Mm-hmm. But at least we get linked with good players now. That's a good thing.
Do you think anyone will be tempted to have a go, Mitch? Real Madrid, of course. You know, I think we've discussed there's only a couple of teams who could afford him.
I've said it before and I'll say it again. That number of clubs who've ever paid 50 million or more for a player in the world, number 17. And then you whittle them down about who was in a position to spend that kind of money. Right now, it probably gets down to 5. And then when you take that even further down to where would Bruno potentially go, Real Madrid remains one of them, but you've got to remember that we don't know where they're going to be with other incomings. Biggest secret in the world that the bloody angry frog from PSG is probably on the way there. And so where do they stand from? And I know they cook the books and they get help from everybody in Spain to help balance their books by pulling numbers of economic levers. But still, it would be difficult for them to do it, I think. But yes, it's probably one of the few places he would look to go. I don't know if Modric has actually signed a contract extension now. But
yeah, 1 year.
That would be, suggest that maybe they're not necessarily looking to bolster midfield too quickly or too deep. But either way, I still think the release clause was a smart move to get everything done and dusted and over by the end of this month. And it'll either stop a lot of speculation or it'll be done and we'll get over it and we'll move on. But either way, the people in control are Newcastle United. Who controls the narrative? We do. Well, we've got a contract in place. You've got to meet our terms before we're going to let it happen. And then, so I think, like I say, I think that's a smart move. But I remain hopeful that some of the places that he might want to go just aren't in an FFP position to try and go, single payment all up front, because it would destroy their books for the next 2 years.
Yeah, YI Man says result will be tested after the clause finishes. Say Madrid offer 80 million, Bruno would want to go, and you can't keep an unhappy player.
That's valid. I mean, as I said, Real Madrid you said it yourself earlier, Steve, they just won the 15th Champions League. They would turn any player's head, and you couldn't blame any player wanting to go there. But for me, I think what we need to take into consideration, and sometimes doesn't get mentioned enough, is the camaraderie that Eddie Howe and his staff have built with the players, the togetherness they've got, and how they worked together last season to achieve something, and then how this season they won together and they failed together. And I think for a lot of them is a desperation to right the wrong of the season that's just gone. And I think they're invested in the fact that they were unlucky through different reasons. And the big players when we're talking about the big players, the ones that are branded as elite, which is the Bruno, Isaacs, Gordons. Joe Linton's already signed a long-term contract. So the bigger players, I think they're in it together to say, let's give the season a go. And I think deep down, it might actually suit the players, not the club commercially, but it'll suit the players to have not the distraction of the Thursday night, Sunday night, and they can say, right, we're going to attack this season. We're going to give it our best. And let's see where we are this time next year. And as I said to you, not last week, the week before, it wasn't last week, I was not. It must have been midweek. I put a big bet on Newcastle finishing in the top 4, which logically they shouldn't do with the monies that others have got to spend. But this team spirit will get you so far. But we've already managed to accrue in such a short space of time top quality players. And there'll be another 2, possibly 3 top quality additions by the time the window closes to bolster the starting 11, which then in turn makes the squad better. And I genuinely think they'll all be in this together, unless someone comes in with a daft offer and says we're going to pay you that much, where it would be commercially naive to turn it down. I think they'll all be starting next season. All the ones that Eddie Howe wants, and I know he says publicly he wants every single player, even the ones that are leaving. I wish they weren't going. You know, he said the same about St. Maximin. We knew that he didn't want him in the squad, but he's never going to talk anyone down publicly. And look at the number 10 he got to replace him. Look at the figures. There's a difference. No one's pining for that now. We are moving on as a club with astute buy-in and fantastic management. So regarding Bruno going to Real Madrid, that's the only team I think you'll sign for this summer. And I'm sure this will eventually come back and bite us in the backside. But I genuinely think this team have got a point to prove, and collectively they'll prove it next season.
I sometimes think, am I the only one that's genuinely not bothered whether he goes?
No, I mean, look, we've been there before. We're all of a certain vintage who've seen Beardsley, Waddle, Gascoigne go. We've seen players that we've got used to. Gary Speed, Rob Lee, Alan Shearer. We've seen them all over the years. We've seen big name players go.
Isn't the same scenario now, Steve? It's not like we're Newcastle United with an owner who's quite happy to drop his pants and take anything from a club waving the money under his nose
and not spend it and not reinvest it. Now it's different.
We've gone from not even in the discussion to now. I would say we are firmly in a group of clubs viewed at second tier in Europe. We're not quite in the top tier. But within 3 years, we've gone from not even in the discussion to that second tier in Europe. Money generated from a sale of a player like Bruno, we know will be reinvested and reinvested well. Yes, it'll hurt. Yes, it doesn't send a great sign in terms of building a squad. But players come, players go, Newcastle United remains. And as long as we see that we're realistic about where we are in the world of football and going forward and still trying to improve and trying to be better, and knowing that we've got custodians who want the same as us at least. Maybe it's like you, I'm also cynical and battle-scarred of seeing players disappear and getting just sort of used to it. Perhaps that's my Stockholm syndrome. But
this is a new Newcastle match. It's different.
Absolutely, and that's what I'm saying. Even Steve on mute saying the same thing.
That's the point I was trying to make. That's the point I was trying to make, lads. That we in the past we sold players to buy a new stand, or we sold players to just put in my back pocket. We didn't, and that's what's created the fans that we are. The ones who are Stockholm syndrome fans. The ones who are used to seeing those players go and not see the investment, and we're used to being crapped on from a great height. But the difference is now that if we sell Bruno, then because of amortization or whatever it's called, an FFP, etc., because of the money that was spent on bringing him in, then Newcastle will be able to go out and spend more money. I mean, it's a winning situation for Newcastle, and midfield's not an area we're struggling in, let's face it. And we have got Tonali to come in next season. It wouldn't be the end of the world. And I think this is the difference between older fans and younger fans, Stu, and I look at us as older fans.
Yeah.
You know, younger fans will be in a period of mourning, you know, when and if Bruno goes. Look at the reaction when ASM left. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be comparable, if not more outpouring of anger and frustration by keyboard warriors on social media for a few hours until another player comes in. It is a different situation, Stu, isn't it?
Yeah, but I used the phrase before there of inevitability about Waddle leaving, about Beardsley leaving, about Gascoigne leaving. And I'm sure at some stage Bruno will, but for me, it doesn't seem like his story's finished. And he is an emotional guy, but he's emotionally attached to the club, and most importantly, his family sells here. And I like the comment that someone put on there that we didn't sign great players, or we didn't accrue great players. We made them great with coaching. No, but we signed very good players. We've now got great players. That part I agree with, which will then attract better players, which is the point I was making. But regarding Bruno, in fear of repeating myself, I just think unless Real Madrid come in for him, I don't think he's bothered about going anywhere else. I think he's happy here, and I honestly think they're all in for a huge push for next season. Now, this time next year, if we still finish 7th again, we'll be in for a different conversation, because it won't just be Bruno that'll be saying, look to their agents, get me out if I've done my bit. You know, if let's say Isaac notches 25, 30 goals and we don't qualify for Europe again, can we blame him? But that's different from we're selling people, as Mitch mentioned there, we're selling people, like we're talking about Peter Beardsley. He was sold to build the Melbourne stand, wasn't he?
Yeah.
That's where his money went for that stand. We don't need to sell because the owner wants to keep the money. We know from personal experience, we had a call last night from someone close to the PIF. And when we were across in Saudi, which was 2 weeks ago, it seems like 2 months ago, doesn't it? But we're across there, we were speaking to them, and the phrase I used is they would rather, at the moment, it was about Man United, wasn't it? They would rather shit in hands and clap than sell players or buy players from Man United at the moment, the way they behave regarding certain things. So we are getting stronger, and the team's getting stronger, and our resolve as fans has to be stronger, because we seem to just want drama. We seem to just want some sort of crisis to happen, when really what we should be doing is looking to build and just mirror what the owners are doing, mirror what the team's doing. If you think about 3 years ago, when Steve Bruce was in charge, at the start of the season, we had every right to think, we're going to get relegated. When will we ever see the Premier League again? We're never talking about getting relegated. No, not now. We're talking about, are we going to finish 3rd, 4th, 5th? 6th will be a bad finish next season. And we'll have a debate about someone like Bruno. I agree, he's replaceable. He has his flaws, but he has so many positives. Why can't we start looking to keep our best players and attract more best players to play with them? Because I think it would send the wrong signal out. When Coutinho left Liverpool, that was something that a lot of people have tried to mirror against. Liverpool had a great squad at the time. They had a lot of depth in the squad. We don't. And for me, when we're trying to attract the player, I think, well, hang on, you're going to sell your best player or your most marketable player. Why would I want to go there? I want to go join a team that is on the up, that is on the ascendancy. And I think it's critical that we keep the Brunos, the Isaacs, the Gordons, the Joe Lintons, the Livermentos. That's the crux of us for the next 3-4 years. And if next season we don't qualify Europe and Bruno says, look, I want to go now, I'm 27, coming on to 28, take 80 million from him. Because by that stage, we've got players coming on. Miley will be a year older. We'll know if Anderson's going to make or break next season. And if it's a break, the footballing sense, then we'll get 20, 30 million from him, which the word that you love, amateurization. You can amateurize that, and that 20, 30 million becomes 60, 70 million. We can buy a ready-made addition to the squad. We need to be in a position where we start looking forwards and upwards instead of worrying about what's coming behind us, because that's what's happening at the top. And we need to be taking their lead and not, oh no, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. And that you see it every day on the social medias, and the outcry is laughable. Tosin, half the fan base never heard of him. The other half can't even pronounce his name properly, me being one of them. And now it's like, we're not a big club because we can't attract someone at a free. We did attract him. He wanted to come, but someone gave him £3 million a year more. He went somewhere else. That's it. So the word that just come on the screen there is ruthless. That's what we are. And if Bruno gives an indication he wants to go, for sure they'll take the money. For sure. But he's never said that at the moment. And he's been quite clear that he wants to stay. So for me, he is staying, and so will the rest of them. We've seen how people have left already. There'll be other ones leaving, ignoring the Hendricks and that, because they weren't already in the squad. There'll be other people within the squad going. The captain of England tomorrow being one of them. They'll go. We need to, if we're going to sign some of these 100-odd players we've been linked with, we need spaces in the squad for them. So do they really think they're going to start getting rid of the top players and leaving the bottom players? That's not how we advance. So yes, there will be outgoings, and we all know that Trippier's one of them, and we all know that they're trying to sell McGee, and we all know that Wilson's a sellable asset at the moment because he's got 1 year left on his contract. There's 3 spaces already that we can, well, 5 if you take the 2 that have gone. There will be signings. We've just got to trust the process, as we've said more often than not, and allow these people to do their jobs. And before we signed Isaac, who knew about it? Before we signed Livramento, yeah, that was mentioned a couple of times. But normally a lot of it is done like clandestine, like style, where bang, this is our player. Even with Tonali, the smokescreen was Barello, wasn't it? That's who everyone thought that we were going to sign. And then 2 days later, we'd sign Tonali. So we're doing what we need to do, and we are going to get there. Not as fast as we as supporters want to be, not as fast as the owners want us to be, but we are going to get there. We're going to be in position next season, Champions League. Then the players who today we're discussing would they stay or they're going to leave, they'll be wanting to stay because they've got Champions League. Why would they go anywhere else? This is the season where everything happens. Sorry, I went on a bit too long there.
No, you're fine. Matt Target's been transfer listed according to Benny. Makes sense with Kelly coming in, he says. But yeah, look, lots of stuff coming in about transfers, etc. We'll be covering that all the way through the summer. David Cook says, what gave the poor Swedish people, what have, you should have said, the poor Swedish people done to get such a negative syndrome named after them? Google it, mate. Google it. It's an interesting read. Okay, halfway through the show, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria, their website mrvickies.co.uk, telephone 01768 210 102, or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Thanks to United Group Travel. There are no strangers in our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Thanks to Media Arts for the technical side of things. And you can also find us as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or other podcast providers. You can subscribe to the channel by hitting the subscribe button underneath this video. Hit the all notifications bell so you don't miss a show. Hit the thumb up to like the channel and click share to your social media. If you want to join the channel, then click join for as little as $1.99 a month. If you want to become a member, for a one-off £25 payment, email john@nufcmatters.com or go to membership at the website nufcmatters.com. If you've got a smartphone, hold your camera over the QR code and it'll take you straight there. We also help the food bank on this channel. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk to the matchday bucket and you can leave a virtual donation today. And don't forget the end of season due in aid of Dementia Matters. Superman and Gibbo and George and the Longsands performing for free on the 20th of July. Tickets available newcastlelegends.com or nufcmatters.com for the price of a tenner. Get yourself along to that. And Gibbo and Robley are doing an event at the O2 City Hall. You can get tickets from £15 via ticketmaster.co.uk, and there are also tickets available on voucher for that one as well. So get yourself onto the website to buy your tickets today. Gary Milligan, good evening. He says, what does the panel think about this feasibility study when the owner of the nearest building to St James's Park said no one from Newcastle had been in touch with him? The same bloke said he would sell to the football club. Mitch, I'll come to you on that one first. What's your feelings on what Gary has to say there?
I've used two words about a lot of the air quotes consultation that's been going on recently, and those words are lip service. I genuinely think they already know what they want to do and how they want to implement it, and when they go ahead with that, that's when they'll get in touch with people. I'm amazed if they haven't been in touch with this guy already, but nothing would surprise us. But maybe also we've just had a brand new COO appointed, and that may be more his remit and what he is there for, bearing in mind his background is developing aviation facilities amongst other things, and very well at that. So I think that's maybe more of a move that will see proper consultation move forward.
Okay, what's your thoughts on what he's got to say there about the feasibility study, Stu?
I think the club know what they're doing, and this is why there's been sound bites coming out with those 4 options or 3 options, which C was the most preferable one. Then there was the leak where they were going to extend the Gallagher's. I'm still off the thought that the want to coin Mitch's phrase, a shiny big stadium, a brand new one, and I think that's what they'll end up getting once we're consistently in Europe. It's a way to go, and we touched on it a couple of weeks ago when I said, look at the type of people who are coming to the game now. Those in the region who would turn their nose up at those who were match goers are now going, and then as you know, there's a lot of people from further afield that are interested in watching Newcastle United. So what's the phrase? We need a bigger boat. And if we can't extend the East Stand, then the new stadium to me is the answer. So even when we talk about the directors of football, the club were very shrewd, so they weren't getting done for tapping anyone up. They outsourced that job to a third party, didn't they? And that could quite well be the case with this regarding the Leazes Terrace. I don't think the club are sitting in the dark about what options are available to them at this moment. It's just what move they want to make, and they'll do it at the right time. Because one thing they have been doing, even though we've all been guilty of saying sometimes they haven't, they do actually listen to what the fan base are wanting. But ultimately, they will end up doing what's going to make them the most money. And for me, that would be a new stadium. As long as it's very close to the city centre, as in Leazes Park, then I can't see how that can cause too much discontentation with people who are traditionalists. Like, we want to stay at St James's Park, where for most of us, we've never seen them win anything. Let's get a big new stadium where everyone can sit with who they want to sit with. Everyone who wants to go can go with who they want to go to. And that, for me, will only amplify the atmosphere. And it'll make us an even more formidable opponent to those who are travelling up to the northeast.
Okay, I just want to say thank you to everybody watching tonight. 850 watching, got over 500 watching on YouTube, 350 watching on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. If you want to join us on YouTube, open another window, don't interrupt your viewing, and just search on YouTube for nufc Matters and hit the subscribe button. It is free. We don't hassle you, and you just get a notification to say when the show is going live. We do 7 shows a week. 1 hour usually is the length of the show. But get yourself on NUFC Matters on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. Question for Stu here as well. Have you had a bet on Scotland getting out of their group in the Euros, Stu?
No. History tells you they won't get out of it, but I am going to 2 of the games. I'm going to the Switzerland game and the Hungary game. And I'm based myself in Cologne, which is in between the 2 cities they're playing in. I'm forgetting which cities they're playing in now. One's Stuttgart, Frankfurt and Cologne. I'm staying in, where am I staying? I'm staying in Frankfurt, I think, and they're playing in Cologne and Stuttgart. But just to go there and watch them. But I think they do have a chance of getting out of the group, but I haven't even looked at the odds of what it is. In Scotland, they'll probably get a result against Germany against all odds and then lose the other 2 games. But seriously, I think the group that they've got, they've got a chance of getting out with it. But to answer the question, no, I haven't had a bet on them yet. Not saying I won't, but I haven't had a bet on it yet.
Okay, yeah, a lot of people talking about the other YouTube channels on here. Jules says, please don't mention the YouTube channels. Yeah, we don't go in for all of that backwards and forwards rubbish on here. Look, let them get on with it. It's there's something for everybody in the NUFC YouTube community. And the simple thing is, if you don't like it, don't watch it. And if you get a feel that you're getting led up the garden path, don't watch it and come and watch NUFC Matters. That's what I would say to you. Rob has a message for Mitch. He says, Mitch, I'm doing your Deftones request on the next Talk of the Tune on Tuesday. So there you go, which is great. Okay, we have got lots of questions coming in. Only got about 25 minutes to get through them. We always get the same questions every week, and we always ask the lads because they may or may not, because of the tone of these questions, have an answer. Doug Hall watches on Twitter religiously. How are you, Doug? Have the lads had any whispers on sponsorship? I don't think we'll be going down the Dortmund road, says Doug. But anything come from the conversations that you had last night over 20 or 30 Jaeger bombs whilst watching the Dortmund game?
No, it was more of the call that we received. But have we heard anything concrete enough to say yes? Then the answer to that is no. Have we heard whispers where we could sit and speculate? Yes, we have, but then we won't because it's not what we do. But if anyone wants to hear any gossip about sponsorship, just read Amanda's post on Instagram. She told you she was good for sponsorship. So you can, to coin a phrase of Mr. Kennedy, you can join the dots. And who's heavily invested in Formula One at the moment? That's a Saudi company. Oh, that'll be Aramco. So you don't know. There's talks about of a training ground being sponsored. But getting back to the question is, have we heard? Yes, we have. Well, I have. I know Mitch has because we did discuss it. But is there something I want to say on here? No, not until I've got a bit more substance to what the information that we've received. Yeah, Mitch, pretty much the same answer.
Yeah, we'll certainly not be going down the Dortmund route, I would hope. Talk about not being able to read a room at a specific time. I mean, I'm quite sure the company's doing very well at the minute, but still, it's not necessarily a good look. I find it unusual for a German team with all their voted 50+1 and fans do this and fans do that, to do something as tone deaf as signing a sponsorship agreement with one of the biggest weapons manufacturers in the world. But never mind. Imagine if it was us. Would have Yemen coming out where he is. But never mind. It won't be us.
This is mixed up, Mitch. You're getting your Y's and S's mixed up.
Probably aye. Wouldn't be the first time.
Yes, why, man, they have talked about sponsorship of training kits and training ground for months, to be fair. There will be something come,
If you read something from about 2-3 months ago, there was an interview with Peter Silverstone. And I'm saying that we're in this sort of funny middle ground. And again, it links, I think, with where we are in the world of European football. If we were the next tier up, we would have a lot more interest from the outside coming in. And at the minute, what we're having to do is, from the inside, reach out. And the other thing they're definitely doing is trying to see which existing partners are now in a position to upgrade their sponsorships and move up the way and take a bigger role and put more money in, partly because that's an easy win. They don't have to go through the process with the EPL again and none of all of those fair value things because they've already done it. But then getting attraction from the outside in is a lot harder when we're having to reach out and bring them to the party. So I think that's the reality kind of where we're at. And these deals don't just happen. And also, I don't wonder whether they've been holding off until the Adidas deal is firmly in place, because I'm quite sure a lot more companies would be much happier signing an agreement that sticks on a wall behind Eddie Howe being interviewed to have their company logo sit next to Adidas than there would be to Castoria. No offence meant to Castoria per se, but this brand association is huge. That's why we were a toxic brand for years under Mike Ashley. People didn't want to be associated with Sports Direct, and it made it very difficult when they showcased the stadium name. They knew exactly there would be nobody coming along to take the naming rights because nobody wanted to be associated with Sports Direct.
Yeah, all good points. What was the other question that we got? Alan Thompson said, Stu, you said would spend approximately 200 million. Do you stand by that? He says, I think we spend 50 to 60 million. If we can sell players, I think the fans are in for a shock how bad it'll be.
I do stand by that. I think we'll sign at least 4 quality players. And as I said, if people are going out, we need to fill the squad up, don't we? And the used amortization, let's say there's 20 for Miggy, 25 for Trippier and Wilson combined. There's 45, and that's before spending any of the other money. So you times that by 4 because you've got to take salaries into consideration. You're at 180 million already, and that's without any money going in. And the owners I think the biggest frustration they've got is they haven't been able to spend the money they'd like to spend. And what a lovely position that's for us to be in. So we'll have to be careful of listening to the people pleading poverty. They'll spend as much as they possibly can because believe it or not, they want us to get to number 1, as the chairman said, as quickly as possible, because then we are on the top rung of Adidas, even though we're now in the favoured 6 of Adidas sponsorships. And it is great. Like, I was in between social activities. I was in a mall yesterday morning in an Adidas shop, and it was like Man United, Arsenal, Juventus, Real Madrid shirts there. And I just thought, if I'm here this time next year, there'll be a Newcastle strip right next to it. I think Bayern Munich's the other one, isn't it? That's the 6, and this is where we're going to, and this is the position we're in, and it's Richard's bang on there. It's association. You want to be seen with top brands, and this is something that we've said until we're blue in the face. Where how can the Premier League decide what a brand should sponsor us by if it means so much in this region, in the Middle East? To be associated with the PIF, to be associated with Adidas worldwide, it's great kudos, and it brings up. Look at Seller. Who had heard of Seller before they become our shirt sponsor? We had, but how many people back home had heard of them? But then at the boxing 2 weeks ago, they were one of the main sponsors. They did all the light shows and everything else. There was a drone show, wasn't there? I sent you the video, Steve, didn't I? There was a drone show for the cars on the way there. It's another level, and we have to start accepting these people really want to take us to the big time. So do I think we'll spend 56 million? Yeah, we will on one player. But I still think we'll spend nearer 200 million by the time the window's closed if the right person or the players become available. They won't just spend it for the sake of it. So to answer Alan's question, I'll say 200, he says 60, and we'll see who's closest at the start of September.
Yeah, I agree. I think there'll be sponsors come in, Mitch. I mean, we've said this till we're black and white in the face on this show. We know that's what will happen, and some of it will be down to financial year ends. Some of it will be down to FFP. What's good for us? What's good for the club in general. I've not heard any talk of a new Amazon documentary, but there was cameras always at the stadium, Neil. So I wouldn't be surprised to see a part 2 to that. But yeah, there will be more sponsors coming in, Mitch.
Of course there will. And it's interesting to see people talking about New Era, producing the caps and the headwear. And again, that's another significant move. They're the number one producers of those in the world. And I was actually in a New Era shop in Dubai Hills Mall about 2 months ago, and looking at the caps there. And the only Premier League caps they had in there were Tottenham and Man U. Didn't even have Chelsea. So that's the kind of level we're moving into with that deal. All little things, but they all add up. But also, again, brand association. It's the number one brand in the world. And so these kind of things matter in getting other sponsorships alongside.
Alan says, thanks, Stu. You've just cheered me up. I'm going to the bookies tomorrow to put £50 on Scotland to get over the halfway line in any of their 3 games.
That's very positive, Alan. So I'm glad I've been his day.
Yeah, he's been taken over by Darren, who's Mr. Negativity nowadays. It's all changed on a Monday night, like it really has. As long as St James's Park doesn't end up like the boxing in Saudi atmosphere-wise, no chance of that, mate. And look,
What?
Didn't come across it twice now. It hasn't come across like that on the telly. So maybe it's the microphones and where they're placed. Who knows?
Yeah, it was possible. Now there was a lot of, granted, where we were, there was a load of Usyk fans, and they were very boisterous. But you could hear the Fury fans as well. I thought that atmosphere was great. Even the pre-fights, you could sense it building up. I think it's because it was such a historic night. What might have let it down initially was the fight just before it was a bit of a
boring.
Yeah. That fight, and that seemed to dull the atmosphere a bit. But once the main event got going, we walked out, didn't we? Said that it was really good atmosphere. I don't understand why people are not going to.
Yeah. Okay. Steve Middleman says, I'm confident we'll sign 2 strikers, Benson and Hedges, all in one packet deal from a large source. Thanks for that, Steve. And what was else? What's your thoughts on the leaked kits? Has there been another leak? Because I haven't seen it. Has there been another leak of strips and stuff?
It's just the same ones, isn't it?
Same ones, yeah. So we'll wait and see. It's not long to wait now. Friday.
Well, contrary to popular opinion, I believe it was a week before anything was leaked that I described a few things on here because I'd seen the bloody things.
You did, yes.
But never mind.
Yeah, Gary Milligan, I don't think they'll do Mankini's, mate, but I'm sure you'll be able to get one and sort of
Budgie Smugglers.
Mitch Budgie Smugglers, yeah.
The day I buy my NUFC Sambas in Dubai Mall, you'll see us on the telly having been arrested for running through the mall in me Sambas and me Budgie Smugglers shouting Bruno over and over again.
Brilliant. Mitch has done a pre-order on Adidas Budgie Smugglers, says David there. He was getting in with the same one. Gary says, Budgie Smugglers, Mozza as well. Anyone else cringe at the build-up to the final last night? It's all just the way it is now. It's all for TV, Dean, unfortunately. I wonder if Adidas will do a line in Budgie Smugglers and Mitch models them. Yeah, possible.
Take years to get a body like mine. Hard work.
It definitely, aye. Barry asks a question which we'll cover a little bit on the Amigos, but Stu hasn't had his time to have his say about the new coup at the club. Brad Miller has come in, and yeah, I mean he's a step up again, isn't he? Although he's below Darren Eales, he's got a good track record in a different area, and it's another good addition off the pitch, I would say, Stu.
Well, he is. He comes with a very high reputation in the area that he works in, and he knows how to negotiate, he knows how to run business, he knows how to improve businesses, and that's what they want. And it's great that the club will recruit the best, and I'm trying my best not to use a Simon Jordan phrase of best in class, but that's the way we're going. And they won't just appoint someone for the sake of it, and this is probably where we're seeing the director of football being delayed now. But with the appointment of the new chief operating officer, it's someone that they've clearly headhunted, and the fact that he's happy with the terms that have been offered, and I'm quite sure he'll have a watertight contract as well. especially looking at the region he's just travelled from. So any additions like that off the field, for all intents and purposes, for us footballer fans, it means very little. But in the grand schemes of things, it's a big signing. And basically it'll be more money generation for the club, which comes back to us as fans, means we'll have a better product to watch on the pitch.
Yeah, simple as that, really. Will Adidas have clauses with the club, meaning we can get more out of the deal the better we do, Mitch, do you think?
Could do. I think they've had performance. They've had performance add-ons in other people's deals, so it wouldn't surprise us.
Yeah, I'll be shocked if there isn't.
Yeah, you would agree as well, Stu.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if there isn't performance-related incentives, but also at the other time there'll be a bottom line because Adidas will cover themselves as well. But they know what they're buying. They would have seen the sales that they did a generation ago through Newcastle, and that's why I think they were keen to come back. And they've seen the amount of sales were done with Castor, so why wouldn't this second marriage, I suppose, of Newcastle United and Adidas not be so successful? And if you remember when all this was done, we had just qualified for the Champions League, and at the time we were sitting in the top 5 of the Premier League, so we were in the ascendancy. So I'm sure there's a bottom line, and then there's a performance-related incentives to go on. But is it a good thing for Newcastle to have performance incentives? I think so. It keeps us keen, it keeps us honest, and with the people who are in the jobs at the moment won't just be resting on their laurels, because it's their job to deliver to the big bosses in Riyadh a nice, healthy balance sheet every quarter and every year. So, yes, there will be performance incentives in it.
£5 from every strip going to the foundation, which is another great gesture.
In the price of the strip.
Yeah, exactly. Alan says, question, lads, do you think the Premier League clubs have now accepted our takeover after Everton's failed takeover looked so bad? What's your thoughts? Do you think we're being accepted now, Mitch, as far as takeovers are concerned?
No. There's still some little dark forces at work. What's Crystal Palace's incentive to produce votes that work in favour of the so-called, Big Six, as it were? There's still little things in there that are going on that suggests the opinion within certain parts of English football is that American money is good and money from the Middle East is bad. And I think that's something we're still having to fight away from the public eye a little bit. I think it will be a while before that happens. Everton's failed takeover. I will say it again. The Premier League were hoping that would make a problem for them go away, and it's made a problem for them worse because it started to have doubts about where 777 were getting their money from, and the main financial people behind it are suddenly starting to be sanctioned left, right and centre and taken off boards of companies, and companies that own are starting to go into administration because they've spent their time robbing Peter to pay Paul across different industries and different sectors of industries. They now have a problem. They've got an amount of money that needs paid back to 777, but that was made clear during when they allowed 77 to prop Everton up with the money, that A, it would be taken into consideration when the sale went through, and B, if it didn't go through, it was considered a low priority debt. So they're down the rank to get that money back. But if you think anybody's going to write off, 900 million, you'd you'd think again. At the same time, you've got money owed to MSP, who they'll want their pound of flesh out of that at some stage. So any buyer who comes in as an alternative is going to be financially hamstrung before they even start. It's a terrible situation for Everton Football Club, really, all brought about by a Premier League hoping a problem would go away. The Everton problem raised their head. That's why they bent over backwards, give them the biggest COVID allowance ever. Allowed them to write a transfer fee off of a player who had his contract cancelled and write the book value off when they shouldn't have done that. And there's other things they did in the accounts that were borderline. But the Premier League said we were happy to look the other way because it would make the problem go away. The only thing they didn't do was they didn't listen to the Premier League, then got arrogant, stopped coordinating, and started doing whatever they felt they could. Because I think they thought they were going to get away with murder in the end. And they didn't. I think yes, assets, Benny, that's what they're going to get. They're going to get an asset stripper who's going to use the club assets to pay the debts off. And then they're going to be left holding the Premier League club with a new ground, with an old ground and land to do with what they will. That money won't go back into the club either. And they're probably going to struggle. And I know there's not a lot of sympathy for that, but this is one of the founding clubs of English football. This is, again, you look at the fan base, so okay, we haven't always been eye to eye with them over the last few years. But nobody's football club deserves to be treated like that. And so it's a fascinating situation. John Texter is an interesting character in terms of trying to buy and jump in the way he seems to want to, but he has to get rid of his Palace shares. And I know, again, the Premier League being very desperate to make a problem go away, have already suggested they would give him temporary permission to part own 2 clubs. That's outrageous. Could you see them doing that for PIF? I don't think so.
I think that's the answer to your question there in a nutshell. And lots of people kicking off because of the Manchester United announcement that they are going to be allowed to play in Europe. Manchester United and Manchester City are given the go-ahead by UEFA to compete in the same European competitions as their sister clubs in the coming season. And that's a story that's broken with the Times tonight, Stu, and no surprise, really.
I was going to say, is anyone really shocked? I'd rather talk a bit about what the initial question was previously, was the Crystal Palace. It's like, why the big mouthpieces for clubs in Europe when Palace, as far as I know, have never been in Europe? Who are they being puppets for? Who's pulling the strings? Who are they trying to please? You know, there's so many questions there that it all points to one thing, and it is the slow but gradual Americanization of our game. And it's something that Mozza said in the chat there, and she's absolutely right. They keep doing something that's wrong so often, it just becomes an acceptance. It's the norm, and it doesn't make it right. And has there been an acceptance of Newcastle being taken over by the Saudis? I think by the fans there has been. By the clubs, there's still a lot of envy there. By the media, especially the BBC, absolutely not. And this is the lane that we're going down, because if Newcastle start making suggestions, if Newcastle are the first team to challenge the Premier League in a court for restriction of trade, then it's big bad Saudis trying to bully their way in. But when the Americans are all, and I'll say allegedly, whispering behind other people's backs to form I don't want to say a cartel, just say a group with similar interests, then that's seen as shrewd business. And it's becoming to a stage where is it a breaking point? Is the bubble eventually going to burst? Because the one time they did try it, the one time they did try to flex the muscles and tell people what they have to think, that's when the fans stood up against them, and that was the European Super League. And they'll soon remember that one day, without fans, football's nothing. And we all have our points of view, some stronger than others. But if you're, why are Crystal Palace doing it? And that's the questions that should be getting asked. They should be getting challenged. What's it got to do with you? If Newcastle were asking these questions, I can see what you're trying to do. You're trying to make this the Middle East versus America. But it's not. It's Palace, who are owned by, we don't know who they're owned by, but we know 3 people that sit on their board, but that doesn't mean they own them. And now Texter is, I think Mitch called him a chancer. Let's say he's an opportunist, because Everton is a very, very good asset if there was a level playing field. But we all know there isn't. And that's the thing. Everton have got a big, loyal fan base, and they could build very quickly, like Villa have done, like we have done, if they had the right backing, if they had the right support. But I think, and I fear for them, that there's people looking who don't want to buy them to take on the debt, because then you can't invest in the club with the rules that are already in place. You're just taking on someone else's debt and you have to stand still, or if not, even go backwards. I think the only way Everton can go forwards is actually go backwards, a liquidation, let them have to then pay 10 pence in the pound to the people that they owe the money to. And oh, God forbid someone like Mike Ashley comes in and puts the money he got off us into that club. At least he would build it up to a point where he could sell it for a profit, and he'd be very clear what he's doing. But it would at least give them a financial footing where they can grow. At the moment, no one's going to go near them because of the debt that we know of, not just the 777, but the other people. So to buy them, you then have to clear off at least $500 million. Then you've got to finish the stadium. So before you even start, you're on $1 billion out already. So why would anyone put $1 billion into Everton to stand still when you could have bought Newcastle for 300 million, a third of it? And that's the problem Everton have got themselves into through the fact, and it was the player was Gudjohnsen, wasn't it? That Sigmundsson, the one that was jailed, so they were allowed to write that off as part of their financial fair play. Imagine if we tried to write Tonali's fee off last summer, because he couldn't play for us through no fault of our clubs, for something that the player did out of his Newcastle contract, but we didn't. And again, we played it by the book, and we'll continue to play by the book. So Palace, I think questions are still getting asked, why they're asking the questions. That'll happen sooner or later. And I really do fear for Everton.
Yep, Sigurdsson, Stu allegedly says Blue Rhythm Boy. Yeah,
Not allegedly, it
was him. There we go. Okay, last question, lads, and it's one for Mitch. I've got to give a big shout out, by the way, to West Denton under-16s who played a tournament in Blackpool over the weekend. They've just beaten a team from Manchester 2-0 in the final. Well done. Thank you for telling us about that, Gary. And the last one is from David Cook. He says, Mitch, root canal treatment, round 2 tomorrow. As dentist couldn't find one of the nerves last time. Do I need to be scared?
Only 2 times you need to be scared in the dentist, David. The first time is when they're in the middle of a procedure and you hear the words, oh shit. And the second time you should be scared as well, taking your medical histories, if he looks you in the eyes and he says, mind, you've got a purty mouth for a boy.
The third time when he takes his mask off and reveals budgie smugglers underneath his gown.
Oh, no. 975 watching live. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, especially you guys for joining us. 550 watching on YouTube, but the rest of you are on those other platforms. So please get yourself onto YouTube, search NUFC Matters, hit the subscribe button. We will be back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock, with the Fans Forum. Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, Stu. Take care. See you guys Wednesday.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.